Okie dokie. Here we go. We are starting this thing here. Okay, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the establishment of a process. I do have a process, I guess. My process is that basically it ain't a lie. Whatever it is I'm doing, it ain't a lie. I place a lot of reliance on permitting the impulse, and see, when you're permitting the impulse, like the reference, it's a reference sort of like that I picked up from William Burroughs in The Naked Lunch, the claim that all rewriting is censorship. And whilst I agree with that on impulse, I do actually have some kind of countervailing mechanism of adjustment that takes the original impulse and adjusts it for the sake of arrival at a truth that isn't a lie or something. I don't know. Like I say, I think I have a process, and that process is to actually just get the hell on with it, really. And I don't normally talk when I'm doing it, but by having the video running now, I can actually pay attention to speaking and pay attention to what my hands are doing at the same time, in the hopes that the results will be something that you and I can partake in simultaneously. I don't know why, well, I do know why, but my mind is now going on to the idea that whilst I am doing this live, you are watching a recording of it, so the reality of the word simultaneously is not necessarily technically true. And that's the thing about the present moment, isn't it? Is you can tell a truth in the present moment, and time will tell whether it was true or not. When I'm painting my backgrounds, it's very straightforward in the idea that it's like your basic blue sky and green ground. That's how I tend to go. I like to have that kind of horizon distinction between the two colour forms as my backdrop. And when I'm doing the sky, I paint horizontally, and when I'm doing the ground, I paint vertically. Something to do with the reality of how the flora and fauna grow upwards, and the fact that clouds travel across the sky. So those are, like, I would say, set rules, if you want to call them anything, principles of the technique. I don't know where the hell I'm going with this, with my speech or with the image. Sometimes I just get into the practical service of producing a background for myself that I can use later on without going through the background process. But this is going to sound pretty pretentious, but I came up with this notion a little while ago, which is the idea is that you look at a canvas, a blank canvas, and then you fix it with a picture. which is what I feel I'm doing. I'm when you put paint to a canvas like this, and you start to see bits in it, some of it resonates as right, some of it resonates as wrong. It was right putting it up, but it's wrong to not change it, which is where the that sort of revolution against the restrictions of being against censorship kind of jumped in. And I'm going with 3 colours here. I have this very nice pale lemon yellow from Reeves, and a cobalt blue, and a cerulean blue. And I've mentioned it before on previous videos, but I don't ever use colours straight from the bottle. I always like to blend and mix, but I also don't blend and mix to perfection, because I like to see like echoes of the flourishes of the original colours still in there. You see what I just did there was I saw a bit that was wrong. I looked at it and it was wrong, so I just went up and did it. And the current stage I'm at right now is that I've got this blend of 3 colours going on, and whatever comes off my brush in an area that I see as wrong is corrected by the fact that it's the right colours on the brush at the moment. Things will obviously change again later on, but I like being true to the flow and the process. And see now I've got here like little dry patches are coming through, and I can see the white of the canvas still. I've got a little bit of water on the brush, not too much, and what that does, it's new to me actually. I've not been using water with acrylics for long. I've been using acrylics as a sort of like a colour chemistry set. I think that when it's like the difference between analog and digital. Like acrylic paints are very much like the digital of the paint world, whereas oils are like the analog. You know, give it a metaphor if you like. But when you add a little bit of water to acrylics, I just get a little bit of a touch more of the analog, and the sense of blurred blending. So the stark contrast between undiluted acrylic paints is not necessarily the look I'm after anymore. I used to like it, but since having a painting lesson with this artist, Jenny, she taught me how to use waters with acrylics, and I must admit I do prefer having some water in my acrylics now. Like I say, because you don't get you get this kind of like more well, funnily enough, fluid boundaries between different colour sections, and I'm kind of preferring that. I've kind of moved forward from the sort of diagrammatic approach to my subject matters, and I'm going more for a kind of kaleidoscopic outcome than I used to have before. Okay, now turned it upside down because I'm about to do the other side, and I'm going to change brushes. And for this I've got 2 different greens here. We've got a mild green and a pale green. They're the ones I've picked out. We've got a Thalio green as well. Going to use that one. And I've got a couple of wild cards here. I don't know why I picked these ones out, to be honest. Got a cardamom yellow, I've got a black, I don't think, oh no, not black, that's gone. not using that. Purple and green. Yeah, no, I'm going to go all out here. We're going to go for the ultramarine, phthalo green, pale green, mild green, and a bit of cardamom yellow in there. And I'm just going to splurge it all together, actually on the very same patch that I just did the blue on. And that way, if any of the blue gets in there, that'll be a happy accident. And I'll just be content with it anyway, and whatever I'm not content with will get changed later. Now is the winter of our painting content. Yeah, it's going to need the yellow just to lift up a little bit of brightness there, because that last there we go. Okay, going to change brushes as well. This one I'm going to go for a slightly thinner one, narrower, not thinner, same sort of width in bristles and stuff. And yeah, this is looking quite nice. Maybe you can see it from there. Oh, not very well. Alright. So, like I say, I go for the vertical because of the way the grass grows. Oh, how the grass grows, oh, how time flows. Oh, how the wind doth blow. We say goodbye to that which we did previously know. Acrylics can like really fuck up as well. I mean, you can end up with like a very there's a kind of like, there's a sort of uncanny valley where you just get acrylics wrong. And it can happen in your most enjoyable times. So I'm doing the best I can here to not feel that. In fact, while I'm thinking about this, maybe I should go horizontal with this. I've done I've got the first line there, so I can follow this line. And as I said before, there's a kind of like, there's an impulsive corrective that's going on. Like I'll see a bit that's like wrong. So, oh, okay, just instantly slap the brush on that bit that's wrong. Oh no, it's not wrong anymore. And I move on and I do some other bit and go, oh, that's wrong. So basically what I'm doing here is persistent course correction. Maybe I should start talking about my concerns of the world, because I don't know how interesting it is to watch me. It's almost just like watching paint dry, isn't it? Otherwise, I'm worried about China. I'm worried about quite a lot of things, really, I guess. I get a lot of anxiety now when I wake up in the middle of the night. The insomnia has been unfortunately the worst persistent side effect since the divorce. I always wake up in the small hours of the morning. It'd be 3, it can be 4, it can be sort of just before 5 or something like that. And because I work at the post office, my alarm goes off at 5:30 anyway. So to wake up at sort of 4:30, or to wake up at sort of 4 and then have like an insomnia bout means that you don't actually get to go back to sleep before the alarm goes off. And I'm having quite a few mornings like that. But because I'm not existing for my family in the same way that I was before, they were, you know, they're always there with something for you to do. So because they have something for you to do, I guess that starts to feel like a purpose. And now I have to become my own purpose. And I'm sort of doing alright at it. It's been a very, very long time since I've been my own purpose. But the last time I was my own purpose, I was bloody awful at it. But this time round, I seem to be just that little bit better. I'm fitter. I can do 8 chin-ups now. I've never been able to do that many chin-ups before in my entire life. So I'm fitter now at 48 than I have ever been in my whole lifetime. Sadly, I didn't exactly have a very youthful youth growing up. I didn't do too well. I was very depressed a lot of the time, very terrified. But I had this kind of like unhinged comedian kind of characteristic to me that I think certainly led a couple of my past loves to believe I was far more confident and competent and capable than I genuinely was, and I think they kind of learned this later and kind of got sick of me as if I'd tricked them somehow. Well, I guess what you're always looking for is somebody's authenticity, to be content with your own authenticity, isn't it? I think we get into an awful situation in bad relationships where what you really, really hope is that somebody, just for the love of God, please appreciate the fact I've compromised myself for you. I'm having a hard enough time with that fact, and I could really do with the appreciation. And it turns out that what's actually going on is that the person does not appreciate you being inauthentic. They don't. They just don't. But then authenticity itself becomes a bloody concept. You know, if you get really, really stuck inside your own thoughts, authenticity itself becomes a concept. And because it becomes a concept, you aspire to serve it in some sense, and that becomes a manipulation of sorts, and you end up like, oh, I don't know. I equated it once to like you're painting the floor, and you both paint the floor in a compromised colour, and then you retreat to your corners and wait for it to dry so you can come out and bloody compromise again. My ex, she lost herself as much as I believe I did. We lost ourselves for nobody's benefit, just literally nobody's benefit. And I was remarking on the fact that on dating sites there's a lot of middle-aged women who are looking for a mature man, because obviously what they saw beforehand was an immature man. And I said to my ex is that oh my God, I'm a cliche, I'm an immature man, and she just nodded and smiled. But the thing is that she's also a cliche because of the amount of middle-aged women there are out there looking for somebody mature now. I think there's a real breakdown in the something fell over. I think there's a real breakdown in the whole like civil partnership of the male and the female in our culture at the moment. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it's giving us a whole bunch of problems, you know? And there's sort of new problems. And I'm not saying that these problems are the sign that things are wrong, and therefore I am a reactionary and we must go back to the old ways. I'm not even going remotely close to that. The only reason I bring it up is because the prevailing culture is insisting that the old-fashioned conservatism is the prevailing culture that they're rebelling against. And that hasn't been true for bloody decades. And I think what's actually going on, people call it a crisis in masculinity and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, there is a bit of a crisis in masculinity, but it comes from the fact that there's a femininity that's asserting itself right now, and you know, more power to you. Well done, you go for it, girl. You do all that sort of stuff. But what happens when you get powerful? You ascend to a different realm of a whole bunch of other hierarchical structures. And somebody put it once, I quite like this line. It was something along the lines of, when you get rich, your enemies become more interesting because they're not about money. And I just like that idea of your enemies being more interesting. You know, further down the ladder, your enemies are people who are actually sort of more of an existential threat, but higher up in society it becomes more and more, the life and death struggle becomes more and more metaphorical. I guess that's what they would call privilege, huh? Alright, well that's that first background done, and I've got to wait for that to dry. So I'll be back with part 2 later on, and thank you for your patience with my monologues, and we'll see what presents itself on this canvas next video. Alright, bye.